The internet has produced some of the most disturbing stories ever written, and the worst part is, some of them are built on things that actually happen. From government mind control programs to mysterious arcade cabinets that vanished overnight, these are the horrifying internet myths you've never heard of, and we're starting with one that has haunted gamers for over 40 years. Polybius. In 1981, a mysterious black arcade cabinet allegedly appeared in several Portland, Oregon arcades. No publisher name, no clear title, just abstract geometric patterns on hypnotic shifting shapes that were supposedly so addictive players lined up for hours, returning day after day until their health completely fell apart. The symptoms weren't subtle. Players reportedly experienced seizures, amnesia, severe night terrors, and progressive personality changes that got worse with every session. But here's where it gets really creepy. Men in black suits would show up at the arcades, collect data from the machines, and then remove every single Polybius cabinet from circulation. All they left behind were the coins. Some versions of the legend tie the game directly to MK Ultra, the CIA's confirmed mind control program that literally involved dosing unwitting American citizens with LSD. So the idea of the government testing psychoactive technology on arcade kids? Not as insane as it sounds. Here's the thing, though. The earliest online mention of Polybius dates to 1998. No surviving cabinet has ever been found. No ROM exists. Zero newspaper mentions from the actual 1980s. The supposed publisher, Cinesolution, left no record of ever existing. Turns out, real games like Tempest likely got misremembered and folded into the myth over decades. A game nobody can prove existed became one of gaming's most persistent legends. Which is, not ideal for anyone trying to figure out what's real. But if you think a vanishing arcade cabinet is unsettling, wait until you hear about the game that allegedly killed children through sound alone. The Russian sleep experiment. This is probably the most believed creepypasta ever written, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. The story first appeared on the Creepypasta Wiki on August 10th, 2010, posted by a user called Orange Soda. The premise is simple. 5 Soviet political prisoners get sealed inside a chamber and exposed to an experimental stimulant gas designed to keep them awake for 15 continuous days. No sleep, no breaks, just gas and observation. For the first few days, things are fine. Then, they're not. By day 5, the subjects are paranoid and attacking each other. By day 9, one of them has screamed so much his vocal cords are completely destroyed, yet he keeps trying to scream anyway. Just with no sound coming out. Which is, not ideal. On day 15, the researchers open the chamber. One subject is dead. The other 4 have torn out their own hair, clawed at their eyes, and disemboweled themselves. The survivors fight back violently, demanding more gas. The last surviving subject, when asked what he was, delivered the line that made this story famous. He said he was the inherent evil within the human mind, something only sleep keeps in check. Now here's where it gets good. That terrifying image everyone associates with this story, the emaciated figure with sunken eyes, that's a Halloween decoration. A commercial animatronic prop called Spasm, manufactured by Morbid Enterprises. You could buy it at Walmart. The reason this story fooled so many people is because Soviet-era unethical experimentation was genuinely real. The fiction slots perfectly into an authentic historical framework, which makes your brain want to believe it. A good lie wrapped in real history is the hardest kind to let go of. But at least this one stays on the page. The next myth didn't just want you to read it, it wanted you to play a game. Lavender Town Syndrome. This one is genuinely clever, and I mean that as a compliment to whoever wrote it, because the entire thing is built on a lie that sounds exactly like the truth. Lavender Town is a location in the original 1996 Pokemon Red and Green games. It's the creepy village with the Pokemon Tower, basically a massive graveyard for dead Pokemon, and it has this background music that is legitimately unsettling. Minor key, repetitive, sounds like something out of a Japanese horror film. Even without any legend attached, the track makes people uncomfortable. That part is real. Here's what isn't real. The creepypasta claimed that after the game launched in Japan, over 200 children between ages 7 and 12 committed suicide because they listened to the Lavender Town theme. The story said the original track contained extremely high-frequency tones that only children could hear since their ears haven't fully developed yet. These frequencies supposedly caused headaches, nosebleeds, violent impulses, and eventually suicide. Programmers then quietly lowered the frequencies before the games reached Western markets. Now here's why people actually believe this. The underlying science is real. High-frequency sounds genuinely are more audible to younger ears, but the Game Boy speaker physically cannot reproduce the frequencies the legend describes. It's hardware impossible. The legend also piggybacked on something that actually happened. In 1997, the infamous Porygon episode of the Pokemon anime caused hundreds of seizures in Japanese children through rapid flashing sequences. That was real and widely reported. So when someone reads Pokemon content caused mass harm to Japanese children, their brain already has a folder for that. The Lavender Town story just slipped right in next to a real event. But zero news reports from 1996 document mass child suicides. Zero hospital records, zero government acknowledgement. The whole thing is a fabrication dressed up in just enough real science to fool you, which is, not ideal. But at least Lavender Town only haunts you through a Game Boy speaker. The next one haunts you through something far more personal. Smile Dog. Smile Dog is basically what happens when you combine a chain letter with a cursed object and then release it onto the internet. The concept is simple. There's an image called smile.jpg, and if you look at it, you're done. Game over for your mental health. The image depicts a Siberian husky with an unnaturally wide, human-like grin that looks like someone stitched a dental ad onto a dog's face, which, funny enough, is almost exactly what happened. The story first surfaced on 4chan/x/paranormal board around September 2008. The premise goes like this. Anyone who views smile.jpg becomes haunted by a demonic version of the dog in their dreams. This thing visits you while you sleep, and it has one demand. Spread the word. Send the image to someone else. If you don't, the visits get worse. You lose your mind. It's literally a virus with a built-in distribution model. The story forces the victim to become the spreader, which, if you think about it, is exactly how internet content works anyway. The myth just made the mechanic explicit. Here's where it gets funny, though. The actual image, the one that supposedly destroys people's sanity, is a Frankenstein collage stitched together from a Siberian husky meme, dental stock photography, and images of curtains. Someone literally grabbed a picture of teeth, slapped it onto a dog, threw some curtains in the background, and called it cursed. I don't know what to tell you. The mystery of who created it lingered for 15 years. Then, in 2023, a man named Michael J. Lutz just casually confirmed he made the whole thing. The story, the image, all of it. 15 years of people losing sleep over a collage made by one guy with Photoshop and too much free time. But at least Smile Dog only haunts you in your dreams. The next one haunts you in your own home, and it has rules you'd better not break. The Midnight Game. Most creepypastas ask you to read a story. This one asks you to do something, and that's exactly what makes it so effective. The Midnight Game isn't a narrative you consume. It's a ritual you perform. Step-by-step instructions designed to be carried out in your own home, in the dark, alone. Some versions claim it originated as an old pagan punishment ritual. Sounds ancient and credible, right? Turns out no. The oldest documented instructions trace back to creepypasta forums around August 2010, so it's about as ancient as the first iPad. But the specificity of the instructions is what sells it. You write your full name on a piece of paper. You prick your finger and add a drop of blood. You place it in front of a closed wooden door with a lit candle on top. Then you knock exactly 22 times, with the final knock landing at precisely 12 a.m., not 11:59, not 12:01. Midnight on the dot, after the final knock, you open the door, blow out the candle, close the door, and relight it. Congratulations. You've just invited the Midnight Man into your home. From there, you walk continuously through your dark house until 3:33 a.m. If the candle goes out, you have 10 seconds to relight it. Fail, and your only option is to surround yourself with a circle of salt and sit inside it like the world's most terrified geometry project. What really makes this one fascinating is that people actually do it. Numerous YouTube videos document real attempts, with participants reporting equipment malfunctions, temperature drops, and genuine psychological disturbances. Are any of these supernatural? Almost certainly not. You're wandering through a pitch-black house at 3 a.m. after convincing yourself a blood ritual summons something. Your brain is going to improvise, but that's the genius. The instructions are so precise, so ritualistic, that they bypass the rational part of your brain entirely. 22 knocks, not 20, not 25, 22. That number feels deliberate. And the moment you believe the rules matter, you've already started playing. If you thought inviting something into your house was bad, wait until you hear about the story that invites itself into your head and never leaves. Honora Petrova. Most creepypastas pick something already scary and make it scarier. A haunted game, a monster in the woods, a cursed image. But this one took Wikipedia, the most boring, trusted, mundane website on the entire internet, and turned it into a murder weapon. And honestly, it works better than it has any right to. Honora Petrova was described as a promising figure skater from Portland, Oregon. She started skating at 6, took to it like a natural, and by 13, she'd won a championship at the Crystal Classic competition. The kind of trajectory that has Olympic commentators circling your name in advance. Then she found a Wikipedia page about herself. For a young athlete, discovering you have your own Wikipedia page is probably flattering. But here's where it gets weird. The page didn't just describe her past results, it described future ones. Competitions she hadn't skated in, yet had results already listed, victories recorded before they happened. Every single time, the page was right. At first this seems like a gift, a crystal ball disguised as an encyclopedia article. Cool. Except the page didn't stay flattering. The article began describing terrible personal outcomes. It called her a pathetic orphan whose parents died in a horrible accident. And then her parents actually died. The predictions kept getting darker, the language more hostile, until the article was less of a biography and more of a death sentence written in plain text for anyone to read. Eventually, the page predicted she would die friendless and penniless the day before her ice circus audition in Prague. Honora was found dead at her computer in Prague, the day before her scheduled audition. What makes this one genuinely unsettling is the anxiety it taps into. We trust Wikipedia. We trust that information on our screens is neutral, passive, just sitting there. The Honora Petrova story asks a simple question: what if the page about you wasn't just recording your life, but writing it? What if your digital footprint was a blueprint for what's going to happen to you, controlled by something you can't see, can't contact, and can't stop? But if a cursed Wikipedia page sounds bad, wait until you hear about the creature that was literally designed by committee on 4 Sean. The Rake. Most internet monsters come from one person's imagination. The Rake came from a committee. And somehow, against all odds, it actually works. In late 2005, a user on 4chan/b/board posted a thread with one of the most beautifully simple prompts in internet history. Hey B, let's make a new monster. That's it. No lore Bible, no concept art. Just a bunch of anonymous strangers on the most chaotic forum on the internet deciding to build a creature together. They called it Project Crawler during development, which sounds less like a horror monster and more like a rejected military drone. But the thing they designed was genuinely unsettling. The Rake stands approximately 6 feet tall with pale, hairless skin, a hunched back, dagger-like claws, rows of prominent teeth, and glowing orb-like eyes. Some versions gave it telepathy and shape-shifting abilities. Because apparently, 6 feet of hairless nightmare wasn't enough on its own. The canonical version dropped on July 20th, 2006, when something awful forum user Brian Somerville published a narrative positioning Rake sightings as extending all the way back to the 12th century. Suddenly, this thing had history. It wasn't just a monster, it was an ancient monster that humanity had been dealing with for centuries and somehow kept losing track of. Here's the detail that makes it stick. The Rake appears at the end of your bed while you sleep. It doesn't just kill you. It torments you psychologically first because apparently it enjoys its work. And if you've seen the image, you already know why it works. A bald, pale humanoid hunched at an impossible angle, staring directly at the camera with those bright orb-like eyes. That single photo became visual shorthand for every creepypasta monster that followed. The wildest part? Everyone knows it was designed by anonymous 4chan users in a brainstorming thread. The origin is completely transparent, and it spread to the paranormal subreddit anyway. Knowing it's fake didn't kill it. It made people want to add to it. An open source monster built by the internet for the internet. But if a creature designed by committee can haunt an entire generation, wait until you hear about a ritual that asks you to invite something into your actual house. The well to hell. Most internet myths start on forums and live or die based on how creepy they sound. This one got broadcast on national television by a Christian media network, which is, a bit of an upgrade. The story goes like this. Sometime around 1989, Soviet engineers drilled approximately 14.4 kilometers straight down into the Earth's crust somewhere in Siberia, but then the drill broke through into an unexpected hollow space that shouldn't have been there, so they lowered heat-resistant microphones into the hole. The equipment recorded temperatures up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it picked up audio. Specifically, the sounds of thousands of human voices screaming in absolute agony. The kind of noise you'd expect from, hell. Many of the scientists reportedly fled the site, fully convinced they had drilled into the underworld. But wait. Some versions claim a fountain of luminous gas erupted from the borehole, and inside the gas was a glowing humanoid figure with bat wings. Other accounts say satanic figures physically crawled out of the hole. And then scientists were allegedly given government injections designed to erase their memories. Cool. That's also a thing that happened. Here's where it all falls apart. The legend deliberately borrows credibility from the real Kola Superdeep borehole, which genuinely reached 12,262 meters in 1989. But the Kola Superdeep borehole is on the Kola Peninsula, near the borders of Norway and Finland. Not Siberia. That's like saying you visited the Eiffel Tower in Madrid. It's a geographic error so basic it unravels the entire thing. And those terrifying screams? Definitively identified as looped audio clips pulled from the 1972 horror film Barren Blood, mixed with stock scream effects. Someone literally grabbed movie sound effects and called it evidence of eternal damnation. I don't know what to tell you. The whole legend first spread through the Trinity Broadcasting Network and evangelical email chains, giving it a veneer of institutional credibility most creepypastas could never dream of. The real Kola Superdeep borehole is genuinely fascinating on its own. It didn't need demons. But demons get more clicks than geology, and that's exactly what the hoaxers were counting on. But if you think borrowing a real science project to sell a fake horror story is manipulative, wait until you hear about the legend that convinced thousands of people a Soviet military experiment turned men into monsters. Catastrophe Crow. This one's different. Catastrophe. Crow was presented as a lost Nintendo 64 game developed by a fictional studio called Opus Interactive, led by an eccentric German designer named Manfred Lorenz. Development supposedly began in 1996 with a public announcement in 1997 and a Christmas 1999 release window. The game never came out. Delay after delay pushed it into oblivion, and eventually Lorenz and every copy of the unfinished game simply vanished. On the surface, it sounds like another lost media mystery, but the details tell a completely different story. The entire game was inspired by a drawing. Lorenz's daughter Thea drew a picture of a crow with a bandaged wing near what appeared to be a hospital. Manfred took that drawing and built an entire game around it, a gift for his little girl. The game featured something called an eternal revival system, where if you die, your soul remains constant but the world around you changes. You never truly die. You just keep going in a world that's slightly different from the one you left. Sounds like a clever twist on the live system every platformer was using in the late 90s. Then you learn what happened to Thea. Subtle clues throughout the narrative suggest she died from cancer. The hospital in her drawing wasn't imaginary. The bandaged wing wasn't a cute detail. She was drawing what she knew, and suddenly the eternal revival system isn't a game mechanic. It's a father trying to build a world where his daughter doesn't have to stay dead. He was coding resurrection for a child who was already gone. Lorenz reportedly stopped leaving the office for months. When an employee finally confronted him and begged him to think of the player, Lorenz responded with 5 words that recontextualize everything. The player is gone. He wasn't talking about a consumer, the player was Thea, the only person the game was ever meant for. The reason Catastrophe Crow resonates so deeply is because underneath the ARG layers and the creepypasta framing, It's just a father's grief. A man who lost his daughter and tried to build her a world where losing someone isn't permanent, a gift that could never be delivered. Every other entry on this list tries to scare you. This one just makes you sad. And somehow, that hits harder than any of them. But the final entry on this list takes a completely different approach to getting under your skin, and it might be the most effective one yet. Every other entry on this list has something supernatural going on. A cursed image, a demon in your house, a creature at the foot of your bed. This one doesn't. And that's exactly why it's the worst. The creepypasta known as 1999, sometimes called Caledon Local 21, was published between 2009 and 2011. It opens with a line so simple it shouldn't work. The year is 1999. Immediately you're in someone's childhood, remembering things through the fog of being a kid, and that distance does all the heavy lifting. The story describes a local television channel called Caledon Local 21, supposedly operating out of Ontario, Canada from 1997 to 1999. It could only be picked up on older TV sets with rabbit ear antennas. The entire channel was produced from a single house by an unknown man who went by Mr. Bear. He wore a bear costume, or sometimes just a bear mask paired with completely ordinary adult clothing, which is, not ideal. The shows were framed as children's programming. Bright, simple, the kind of stuff you'd expect from community access TV in the late 90s. And that's what makes it work. Because low-powered local stations were absolutely real. Anybody with the right equipment could broadcast to a small area, and nobody was checking what went out over those signals. But, as the narrative progresses, Mr. Bear's shows get darker. In one described episode, he opens a cellar door to reveal 2 young children, and the story never tells you what happened next. That's the weapon. The deliberate vagueness. Your brain fills in the worst possible version automatically, and whatever you imagined is more disturbing than anything the author could have written. The implied child predation. The fact that this man was broadcasting it on a channel children could find. It taps into real-world anxieties about child safety in a way nothing else on this list comes close to. There are no demons here, no cursed files. Just a guy in a bear costume, a basement, and a camera. And that's the most genuinely horrifying thing on this entire list. Because every other entry requires you to believe in something impossible. This one just requires you to remember that people like this actually exist. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.